The atmosphere on the set was tense from the very beginning. Jasmine Crockett was invited to the panel to discuss the growing partisan divide in American politics, but it was clear her presence had already ruffled some feathers. It's Jesse Watters, known for his sharp interjections and often combative style, wasted no time asserting control over the segment. As Jasmine began making her opening statement, contextualizing her points with historical data and legal precedents, Jesse interjected. Mid-sentence, with a dismissive chuckle and a rhetorical question, she attempted to power through politely, only for him to jump in again this time, questioning the validity of her source material. The interruptions kept coming, sometimes under the guise of clarification, other times overtly sarcastic. The fifth time he cut her off, even other panelists began shifting uncomfortably. Yet Jasmine remained composed, her tone unwavering, each time gently pulling the conversation back to her point. It was clear to the viewers that something was building, not just in tension, but in purpose. What Jesse seemed to underestimate was Jasmine's experience dealing with aggressive rhetoric. As a congresswoman and a seasoned attorney, she had faced down far more belligerent opponents. Each interruption served to amplify her resolve, and instead of becoming flustered, she responded with increasing precision. The sixth time he spoke. Over her, she paused and smiled, letting the awkwardness sit in silence before continuing. Jesse laughed again and threw in a snide remark about wokeness, prompting Jasmine to calmly respond with, "If being informed is now a problem, maybe the problem isn't me." It landed with enough weight to hush the background chatter, but Jesse wasn't done. He interrupted a seventh time, this time accusing her of dodging the question entirely. Jasmine leaned forward slightly, locked eyes with him, and asked, "Are you listening or just waiting to argue?" The studio fell into a brief silence, but Jesse recovered with a quip, earning a forced chuckle from a few panelists. By the ninth interruption, however, viewers were visibly frustrated, and so was Jasmine. It was in the 10th moment after the ninth interruption that Jasmine delivered a sentence that fundamentally shifted the dynamic in the room. Once again tried to reframe her points mid-thought. Twisting her words to fit a narrative that simply didn't align with her message, Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't change her tone. She simply stated, "If you'd let a black woman speak for longer than 15 seconds, you might actually learn something that wasn't on a teleprompter." The entire set fell silent. Jesse blinked, visibly taken aback, his grin vanishing for the first time in the segment. The other panelists looked at one another, unsure whether to jump in or wait it out. The audience responded not with applause, but a collective stillness that underscored the weight of her words. In that moment, Jasmine Crockett didn't just shut Jesse down, she dismantled the tone of the conversation and reclaimed her space with surgical precision. The aftermath of Jasmine's comment rippled through social media in real time. Clips of the exchange were instantly uploaded and began trending across platforms. Twitter exploded with hashtags like "Let Her Speak" and "Crockett Shut Down." Commentators on both sides of the aisle took notice. Progressive voices praised Jasmine for standing her ground with composure and clarity, calling it a masterclass in poise under pressure. Meanwhile, some conservative commentators attempted to spin the moment as overly dramatic or accused her of playing the race card. But those responses only fanned the flames of backlash. By midday, major media outlets were replaying the clip in news segments, analyzing Jesse's repeated interruptions and the broader issue of silencing marginalized voices in political discourse. Jasmine had not only called out Jesse, she had, in effect, exposed a pattern of behavior endemic to televised debates where style often outweighs substance. Backstage, attention lingered even after cameras stopped rolling. Staffers on the show reportedly approached Jasmine to commend her for staying calm under pressure. One producer allegedly said, "You handled that with the kind of class we don't see often." Jesse, on the other hand, was seen pacing in the green room, visibly agitated. According to one insider, he muttered something about being set up, though no one else seemed to buy it. In interviews conducted later, Jasmine was asked if she had planned her comment ahead of time. She shook her head and said, "No one plans to be interrupted 9 times. That was just me deciding that enough was enough." Her response only elevated the respect she earned that day. It wasn't just what she said, it was the way she said it. Measured, intelligent, and indisputably firm. The incident also triggered renewed conversations about gender and racial dynamics in media. Academic circles cited the segment in discussions about intersectionality and voice. One university professor even played the clip in a communication class, asking students to identify the moment the conversation shifted powerfully in Jasmine's favor. Feminist organizations and advocacy groups rallied behind her, emphasizing how often black women in public life are talked over or diminished until they push back. Jasmine, already known for her fearless approach in Congress, now stood as an emblem of what it means to hold space without apology. In one follow-up interview, she noted, "I didn't go on that show to battle. I went to speak. But if someone thinks raising your voice makes you right, they're in for a long lesson." Interestingly, the segment had an unintended consequence for Jesse Watters as well. While his core fan base remained loyal, some longtime viewers criticized him for losing control of the conversation and appearing unprepared. A few even pointed out the irony in trying to dominate a debate on freedom of speech by repeatedly silencing another speaker. His network issued a vague statement later, calling it a lively exchange of ideas. But the internet had already decided which way the wind was blowing. Numerous parody videos and memes emerged, including one where every time Jesse tried to interrupt, a giant muted icon flashed across the screen. Though the moment may have passed in real time, its echoes were just getting started in the digital world. Days after the show aired, Jasmine was invited on several other programs to discuss the encounter. Instead of using the spotlight to attack Jesse further, she pivoted the conversation toward the real issues she was trying to raise. Before being interrupted, disparities in policy enforcement, the rise of performative outrage in media, and the danger of reducing complex topics to sound bites, she said. The loudest person in the room isn't always the one telling the truth. Sometimes it's the one patiently waiting to finish a sentence. That line quickly became a quote passed around by activists, educators, and even other public figures. The incident had moved beyond two personalities. It had become a touchstone for how truth can be silenced, and how dignity can still prevail. Under pressure, supporters began organizing around Jasmine's message. Town halls, community forums, and school discussions referenced the clip as a starting point to explore respectful communication. Some called for networks to implement equal talk time rules during debates to avoid monopolization by louder panelists. Jesse, meanwhile, tried to downplay the confrontation in subsequent appearances, brushing it off as spirited TV. But the audience could see through the spin. His demeanor during those shows appeared notably more subdued, perhaps the result of backlash or reflection or both. Jasmine's words had not only cut through the noise, they had set a new standard. It became clear that interruptions might grab attention, but clarity and truth would always leave a longer-lasting mark. Ultimately, what made Jasmine Crockett's moment so impactful wasn't just the viral clip, was what it represented. It was a stand against dismissiveness, against tokenism, against the constant undermining of informed voices in the public square. And she didn't do it with anger or aggression. She did it with facts, patience, and a firm resolve that refused to be shaken. The moment Jesse Watters tried to drown her out for the 9th time,
Jasmine
didn't just respond, she recalibrated the entire conversation. In doing so, she not only shut him down, but opened the door for a much larger, more meaningful dialogue about whose voices matter and why they should be heard completely before being judged. In a media environment starved for truth, her 10th sentence became a lasting reminder that sometimes all it takes to shift the narrative is the courage to finish what you were trying to say. In the days following the explosive exchange, national publications weighed in, each offering different angles on the moment that captivated millions. Some outlets framed it as a clash of ideologies, progressive fortitude versus conservative showmanship, while others zeroed in on the dynamics of respect, tone, and implicit bias. Op-eds were written, dissecting every phrase, every gesture, and every second Jesse spent talking over Jasmine. Interestingly, Viewers from a variety of political backgrounds began voicing similar sentiments online, regardless of one's stance on the issues. It was clear Jasmine had not been given a fair opportunity to speak. Her calm, yet firm reaction, two repeated interruptions highlighted not just her professionalism, but the structural inequities present in media discourse. It wasn't just about Jessie anymore. It was about how people like Jasmine are often forced to fight twice as hard to be heard once. Even within Jessie's own network, the fallout became difficult to ignore. Internal emails leaked, suggesting that producers were instructed to avoid bringing on highly combative guests for a while, and to reconsider the panel format temporarily. Behind the scenes, there were debates about how to regain credibility, with viewers who had criticized the segment as one-sided or manipulative. Meanwhile, Jasmine received an outpouring of support from fellow lawmakers, journalists, and even celebrities, who saw her as a figure of modern integrity. One particularly viral tweet read, "Jasmine Crockett just gave every professional woman a lesson in how to handle chaos with class." The moment had crossed over into pop culture, with late-night hosts referencing it in monologues and sketch artists illustrating it for satirical magazines. Jasmine, however, remained grounded, using the newfound attention to redirect focus to the policy issues she originally came to discuss. Educational institutions quickly adopted the incident as a teachable moment. Several universities included the clip in their curriculum for media ethics and debate classes. Professors used it to prompt conversations on rhetorical fairness, time control, and how media figures shape public understanding of discourse norms. In one such lecture, students were asked to write essays answering the question, "What does it mean to be heard in a space designed to silence?" The overwhelming consensus pointed to Jasmine's resilience and strategic calm as central to her message's power. At a panel hosted by a journalism school, a student asked Jasmine what advice she would give to young people entering political spaces. She responded, "Come armed with facts, but don't let anyone make you feel like you have to shout to prove your worth. Your presence alone is proof you belong." It was a message that resonated deeply with the next generation. Meanwhile, Jesse Waters attempted damage control by reframing the conversation during his next show, offering a convoluted apology disguised as clarification. He claimed, "I didn't mean to interrupt just felt the need to challenge what I saw as misleading statements." But few were buying it. Commentators noted that if his goal was genuine inquiry, he would have allowed Jasmine the space to finish at least one uninterrupted point. Instead, he had created a spectacle, and when it backfired, he pivoted to defense. His ratings for that week remained steady, but the comment sections beneath uploaded clips were overwhelmingly critical. "This isn't journalism," one user wrote. "It's performance with a microphone." Meanwhile, Jasmine's own platforms saw a surge in engagement. As people gravitated toward her message of informed, respectful dialogue, the contrast between the two voices became a case study in how authenticity always shines brighter than performance. As the media cycle gradually moved on, the legacy of the exchange endured. It became one of those rare viral moments that didn't fade, but instead evolved into a broader cultural discussion. Organizations advocating for women's rights, racial equity, ICERD, and free speech cited Jasmine's response as a model of constructive resistance. It reminded audiences that even in spaces designed to overwhelm, truth can still surface when delivered with grace and courage. Jessie may have tried 9 times to interrupt Jasmine, but her 10th sentence wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a restoration. She rebalanced the conversation, reclaimed her narrative, and in doing so, reminded millions that silence is not the default of the unheard, is often the patience before power. That sentence, simple yet searing, didn't just shut Jessie down. It opened up a new national conversation about listening, equity, and the dignity of having your full thought heard.